Hi, good evening. Welcome to a special edition, I suppose, of that Millwall podcast. You know who we are. We are a live interactive show, podcast, annoyance on Twitter, etc., etc. We thought we'd have a go at doing a round table style show. I've got some questions for the guys to crack us off, and then we'll do probably 40 minutes or so, maybe a little bit longer, and then maybe on the last part we'll take some questions from you. You know the way we work. If your question's good enough and it comes in, then we'll probably put it straight to the panel, and if it's not, then it's not. Bear with me 1 second. There we go. Right, joining us tonight, we have Ben Green right there from That Millwall podcast.
Evening, guys. Evening, Mickey. Looking forward to this one.
It's going to be good. Right, over the other side of Ben, we've got Ken, who is from Sky Blue Fans TV. If you don't know what he supports, that would be the quiz of today. If you can tell us what team Ken supports. Good evening, Ken. Yeah,
Good
that's
evening,
it.
Mate. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you? You all right?
Up to your bad pal, yeah.
Right, down in the corner over there, or there we go, that way. You have Chris from Albion Panelists, who is a West Bromwich Albion fan channel. Good evening, welcome.
Thank you, nice to be here.
Good stuff, good stuff. In the middle, we have Matt from a pointless club called Reading, really, I suppose.
Well, no, why not?
And
had to be done.
Yeah, it did. And the man right below me, I knew him and helped give him a break out into the world of Twitter when I ran a campaign what was really, really massive for Millwall, and he used to write bits and pieces for us, and now he's a superstar. You have to book about 8 weeks in advance.
I tend to remember it as me giving you free articles, Mickey. That's kind of...
No, that's the way it was, yeah, but we gave you a platform as well, so I'll always word it my way because it makes me better, but no, he's a good lad. The reason I brought Gabe in is that Gabe knows pretty much the Championship and other football leagues, and I thought if we're doing between, it'll be good to have sort of a non-team Pacific person on with us who can call us all a bunch of fools or call us all a bunch of liars or whichever way we need to go with it. But hopefully this runs fairly straightforward and fairly easy. I have got a set of questions, and I suppose I'll start with the first question. Just a couple of worded answers to a degree. And I'll start with you, Ben. Is what team do you support and why?
What team do I support? Why? The best team in London, the best team of all. If anyone doesn't know us, we're called Millwall. Millwall fan. And the reason I'm a Millwall fan is because my old man didn't really have much choice when I was younger. So, yeah.
Said follow West Ham. No. Go on. Go on, Ken. How long? Why Coventry? And how long you been doing? How long you been suffering now?
All my life, really, basically, which is about 50 odd years, I suppose. But I started as a youngster and born and bred here, and I just got the hitch and obviously never let it go. And as we all do, got into football and obviously started at a young age, and here I am still plodding along.
Chris, same question to you, fella.
A similar answer, really. My dad's a Baggies fan, so I'm a lifelong Baggies fan. I'm even daft enough to give them 8 years of service working in their communications department, picking up an aggressively average wage. So
that's an answer I didn't expect to get, but there. And Matt, same question to you.
Born and bred in Reading, still live in Reading. Was missold a dream in 05-06. That was my first season that I went and supported them, and have had disappointment pretty much ever since. So you could say I'm a glory hunter, and I got my dues for doing that in 05-06. So that's pretty much me.
And Gabe, tell us then, if you do you support a team?
Yeah, so I support Birmingham City. So no, yeah. Well, to be fair, for a while we had a great record at going to the Den. We used to love going down there. I think more recently you've kind of pulled it back a little bit, but
yeah, I think your best game at the Den was 2001.
Oh yeah,
You were
the
kept,
Stern
yeah,
gone in the last
you
minute.
were kept in for a while then.
I know, yeah. Well, I didn't actually go to that game because it was a bit before my time, but I
Thanks for
definitely,
that.
yeah. Yeah, I definitely hear stories of it, and certainly hear stories of people going to the old den as well in the 70s. I think that was a bit of a tin hat one, but no, I think for me it was the weird thing for me was up until about 10 or 11, I wasn't really into football. I didn't quite understand it, and then I had Blues played this random. I don't know if you've ever had these sort of random exhibition matches against international teams. So Blues played Trinidad and Tobago in 2003 for Ian Bennett's testimonial. I went to that because I could randomly get a ticket, and I just fell in love with it from then on. And then for some sort of coincidence, there happened to be a season ticket going that I ended up going, and that's kind of what's got me sort of today, really. Firstly through Blues, and then following the EFL more generally.
Okay, good. Right, so you know a little bit about the lads. As I said, you know the way it works. We will come to your comments. We won't be coming to them every 2 seconds, but we will be coming to your comments throughout the show. Also to you guys who are on the show, obviously, unfortunately, I didn't get to say it beforehand. There is a private chat room on the right-hand side of this, what you guys can see, but obviously outside of here they can't see. If you've got anything you want to come into anything or you want to do it, just drop something in there, then everyone can see it, and then that way it just stops us talking over each other, or those who don't necessarily are that confident screaming over people, which just gives you an opportunity to be able to be brought in. And well, I just want to try and get everybody having a talk. So yeah, first question, and I'll go random and I won't pick the same person every time. I'll go to Chris. What opposition has impressed you this season so far?
I mean, Burnley seems like a blindingly obvious answer, but I mean, they do play some great stuff. They really do. And I mean, we got beat 2-1 there with a last minute Scott Twine free kick. And to be honest, we've gone away with a draw, and it would have felt like a great result. They're just a really, really good side. And I mean, Gabriel thanked me for saying this, but the only team to have doubled us this season is Blues. But I think that's got a lot more to do with us playing David Button in goal for both games than it has than it's got to do with Blues actually. But yeah, I mean, Burnley are just a quality outfit. I tell you the 2 games that I probably enjoyed though the most for Ken's benefit were the 2 games against Cov. We won 1-1-0 and they won 1-1-0, but they were just cracking games of football. 2 teams actually going out to win the game. Only 1 goal in it, but how there's only been 2 goals in those 2 games, I'll never know. And I think Cov are just a good side who've got some nice players that they've done on a reasonably modest budget. And Burnley, it's all well and good having Premier League money behind you. You can go and spend a load on and get on nice Premier League loans and 15 million on a striker in January. Fair play to Cov having done it completely the other way and picked up value.
Is he coming back?
I'm back. Sorry, I don't know how much of that you heard.
We heard value, and then that was it. Oh, I did.
Oh yeah,
value,
well, to be honest, you only missed 2 words off the end of that sentence. Then it was just getting. I'm just impressed with Cov getting value in the market, season after season.
No, that's it. And leads us straight on to you then, Ken. What's your 2 greatest opposition's games you've seen this season so far?
Yeah, I mean, we've been involved in quite a few good games, to be fair, this season. Obviously, Burnley, obviously running away with it. And although we were unlucky, we only lost 1-0 at Burnley, and we lost a home 1-0 as well. So there was only 1 goal in it. So, but to be fair, they did look a good side, and they seem to be a class above everybody else. Obviously, with their budget and the money they've got by coming down from the Premier League. But Sheffield United have impressed me. They've been okay when we played them. They were okay, and Norwich were early on when we played them, but they seem to be a bit iffy now. Norwich, I don't know what's happened to them, but they certainly impressed us when they came and won at our place. So yeah, Sheffield United and Norwich are probably the two which you expect to be up there, really. But Norwich have probably filtered away a little bit, haven't they?
Yeah, no, yeah, they've sort of come off the board to a degree. What's your two best teams then, Matt?
I'd probably to stay away from the blindingly obvious one, as we said before, stay away from Burnley. But Borough, I mean, the football they play, I've really enjoyed watching them this year. Under Carrick anyway. Won't talk of the football before, I guess, but I mean, since Carrick's come in, the way they play, the aggressiveness in the fullbacks down either side, pressing up the pitch, creating overloads, it's just a joy to watch. Maybe left them a bit exposed in previous weeks, and maybe that's something that teams are going to start to exploit. But they've probably been one of the funnest teams that I've watched this year, and certainly when they tonked us 5-0, albeit that wasn't hard under Paul Ince. But yeah, they're probably the best team. The one team that probably surprised me, Preston. We played them at the weekend at their place. Again, not hard to do it against us, but they dominated us for 90 minutes. How it was only 2-1 by the end and how we nearly somehow scraped to 1-1, I will not know, because they pummeled us for the entire
Can we not
game.
say that, Matt, when we've got them this weekend?
Well, something that goes in your favour was that it was against Paul Ince, so I'll caveat it with that, because it was probably against the worst manager in the history of the EFL, I'd say.
Which is we'll come on to managers in a bit, I think. But yeah, on there. I mean, Ben, who do you think our two best opponents have been this season? And obviously, if you're in the chat, there's obviously quite a few of you who are at Millwall, but those of you who aren't, just give us a reply and let us know who you think are your two best opponents were. Go on, Ben.
I think the two that have impressed me the most, and a team I'm actually going to back to get promoted or get in the top 6 next year, is Swansea. I think they were 1 or 2 players away from being a really good side. Obviously, I came down to the game when we played them a few weeks back now, and we didn't touch the ball for about 75 minutes and touched the ball twice in their penalty area, managed to score twice, 2 bad goals. But they just screamed to me that they just lacked a little bit of cutting edge, but really, that for me, they looked a good side. And so I think they're only 1 or 2 players away from a top 6 push. And the other team that I was most worried about going into this kind of end of season run was Ken, your team, Coventry. I've just been impressed every time I've seen them, whether it's been against us or on telly. Just always been impressed with Coventry. Again, like Chris said, think they've done wonders in the transfer market in the last couple of years, really. And if they can keep hold of Guy Carez, which I know is a big if, I'd expect them to be in and around the playoffs again come the end of the season and next year. But yeah, Swansea and Coventry for me. Okay.
I'll come back to you in a sec, Ken, with a question what's been put on here with the panel. But one to Gabe before you come in, and he takes that chance, as written, lads, if you launched the ball into the air, who would win the first header? Duncan Ferguson, Andy Booth, Peter Crouch, or Gabe Sutton? He says he loves your stuff, but he never realised how tall you were.
Yeah, I'm not going head to head with Duncan Ferguson. I don't think that would end too well for me.
What teams have impressed you this season?
He's a vegan now, mate. He's all right. He's a vegan now.
He's missed out on the protein, I suppose, hasn't he? So that might give me some advantage. Listen, I think I don't think anyone's mentioned Luton yet, and they've really impressed me because, I think you look at Rob Edwards, he's come in there, he's taken that sort of those foundations that Nathan Jones laid, and he's taken it to a whole new level because now they've got all the best bits of what they did under Nathan Jones. And they're a more progressive side. They're really well organised, and still with that brilliant sort of structure. They've got a new stadium on the horizon, but they'll be in the Premier League in the next 3 or 4 years. We look at the progress that Brighton and Brentford have made. I think Luton aren't far off that. So, really impressed with the Hatters and the job that Rob Edwards is doing.
Okay, there's a question come on here for you, Ken, from one of our fans, who says, do you think Coventry would be pushing top 2 now if it wasn't for the crap start due to the pitch fiasco at the beginning of the season?
I think we'd certainly be up in the top 6, definitely with because we had to play all them games away from home. And we had all sorts of problems, and then we've had injuries as well the last sort of month or so as well, which hasn't helped us. Without a doubt, I think we'd certainly have at least 9 points in the bag. I think probably more, and I think we'd be in the top 6 at the moment. Yeah.
Do you mind me asking, Ken, how good do you think the Cov squad is, apart from if you take out the likes of Hamer and Gyökeres? Like, how good a squad do you think it is aside from those two?
We've got a good squad. The trouble is we haven't got in depth. We haven't got a strong squad. If we have injuries, like we've got O'Hare's been out, he's out for the whole season now. Casey Palmer's out now for the rest of the season. Jamie Allen's got an injury now. That's 3 midfielders who would normally start. And Godden's only just been sort of come back. He missed half the season. And once you get injuries like that to a sort of, a very bare squad, where we haven't got a strong enough squad is my problem. And we haven't just got enough players basically to reinforce us when we do get injuries. And we're on our bare bones at the moment. We've had a couple of youngsters we've had to put in, and they've done well, to be honest. They've done fairly well. We've got a couple of loan players coming in from Manchester City who've done pretty well as well. So apart from that, the answer to the question is I think we would be definitely in the top 6 now by a long margin, I think.
Is that something everybody's club has got? Because we've got our entire left-hand side out. We've got our entire central midfield out. We've got 3 centre halves out injured as well. Our injury list is crazy. Our injured players are probably a better team than our fit players at this moment in time. Is it just this stupid season that we've had with the World Cup in the middle that's killed everybody's squads?
It feels like the same with us, Chris. I think every time we get a long-term injury back, we get another one, we get another 2. Yeah. We've constantly got a rotation of 3 or 4 players out that would be in and around the starting 11 or certainly be in the squad. So, I don't know the reason behind it, but certainly we've had, a rotating injury list, it seems like.
Well, the schedule can't help, can it? I mean, we condensed all the games at the start of the season into a little block. Then we had the World Cup, and now we've got to fit in a stupid amount of games after the World Cup. It can't help.
Yeah, it's an unusual season, isn't it? We don't normally get this, and to be honest, I'd have rather had no World Cup break and carried on. To be fair, but I think most people would agree on that. We had the momentum, and then we've come back after the break and we're not at it. We've lost a couple of games and dropped points. So, but I think it's the same. As I say, it's the same for everybody with injuries. A lot of injuries about this season for some strange reason.
I think the only club really that hasn't is Burnley at the moment, because I don't think they've got any, or they've only got like 1 noted. I think because we did a preview on them for this weekend's game. They've only got 1.
Yeah.
So
he's done well there, though, isn't he? I mean, he looked into the Belgium league. He took some players from the Belgium league, what he obviously knew really, really well. And he's got that. He's got that aura about him, of who he was. He was a fantastic player, a no nonsense player, and he sort of brought that out into his team in the best way possible. And they just seemed to want to go out week in, week out, playing for him. I mean, the early part of the season, they looked as if they carried on like that. I know, they're pretty much there now anyway. But I mean. The beginning part of the season, when they were knocking 3, 4, 5 goals in on some of the teams, that was just madness. They were just looking as if they were a Premiership team in waiting.
I think you're totally right, Mickey, to bring up the force of personality and character that Vincent Kompany is, because I think there's lots of really good, young, talented, progressive coaches out there who are capable of, having some of his ideas. But it's that ability to go into a dressing room before the game or at half time and just command that attention, command that respect. And I think when you've got both those qualities, then as a manager, that can take you a long way, can't it?
Yeah, I agree with that, Gabe. But I'd also say, just to sort of Matt's point around the injuries, that Burnley are the only ones who've really got that real strength in depth all the way through. I mean, they can rotate the wingers, they can rotate the forwards. I look at our injuries, for example, and Dara O'Shea had played every minute of every game till he got injured. Okay, Koslu, Jason Malumbi had played every minute of every game under pretty much under Corberan. The injuries we're getting are guys who've played an awful lot of football, whereas Burnley have got the strength in depth to actually rotate players. and are probably not getting the fatigue injuries. Callum O'Hare probably played practically every minute of for you before he got injured. The injuries that most clubs are getting are guys that they can't leave out, whereas Burnley can probably leave anyone out and still beat their opposition.
Well, they've had Manuel Benson out at times, and he's been one of the best players in the Championship, but when he's been out, they've not really missed him. So I totally get Chris's point. Yeah.
Is that on the back of them coming down from the Prem, where obviously the Prem has a lot higher player ratio, or?
No. I think talking to the chat from Turfcast for the podcast we did with them. They lost a lot of the players that they had in the Premier League, so they actually had to do obviously a lot of recruitment over the summer. And obviously, I think to be honest, they've been quite smart. I think everyone thinks you've got to spend, people think that the Premier League clubs spend a lot of money. I don't think they've actually spent massive amount in comparison when you look at the players they've actually got in.
Well, I think they've brought potential as well, Matt. I mean, because I thought they'd finish 8th before the season.
Yeah, I had them to finish 6th. Because of obviously the amount of players they'd lost, but also company, because he did well at Anderlecht, but he didn't pull up any trees. I don't think you probably would have anticipated company coming to this Burnley team and completely revolutionising Burnley the way that he has this year. I think it's only props to company really on that side, because he's just blown everyone's expectations, probably even
and the way
the
way they play as well.
Yeah,
completely transformed. We all knew Burnley like Sean Dyche.
I mean,
didn't he?
I think the other thing with Burnley that's key, and we did this really well the last time we went up, is they've used the loan market really, really well, and I think that is key to having a really, really top Championship season. Look at Harwood Bellis has been superb at the back. Obviously, Teller's been on loan from Southampton and has been an absolutely massive player.
How they got Teller, I will never know, because
I don't know why
he was quite good.
Teller as well in January. Why wasn't he?
Why didn't they take him back? They're they're in relegation trouble, and he's a quality player. But I think generally speaking, you look at the teams that go up year after year after year, and I mean, you go back to Villa getting promoted with that amazing run. Tammy Abraham up front scoring all the goals on loan from Chelsea. And you will find pretty much every team that gets promoted from the Championship has used the loan market smartly. And I think it's part of where we've killed ourselves this year is that we brought in a lot of frees. But we really, until January, I don't think we'd really got a loan in. We've brought Mark Albrighton in, and it hasn't. And it just hasn't really worked. But we needed to use the loan market smart in the summer, and we just didn't. And I think that's part of why we had such a bad start to the season, to be honest.
We've done all right with the loans to a degree, but I mean, there's a lot of speculation at the moment, which is interesting with company. That a lot of people are saying, there was something on TalkSport earlier where they were saying, that Spurs potentially want him because of the fact that he's done what he's done on a budget, which was right into that Levy love fest, in it really, of him being able to do that thing on the budget, how he loves to have a manager. But personally, I just don't think he. I think it'll be a bad decision with a manager going to another team. The problem is that if you're a player going to another team, if there was a couple of Burnley players who went to Tottenham, it's a good opportunity for them, because even if they don't do well, they're on a big contract, they're still going to get paid. Company goes to Spurs, he could be there 6 months and not win a game, then all of a sudden you're out of a job and you've ruined everything you've done at Burnley to go. Personally, I think you should stay at Burnley, get him in, have a go in the Premiership and see what he can do there. Before you guys come in, Ben, you got one more thing you want to talk about loans? Go on, fella.
Well, it was only just really a Millwall-related loan market. I know you said we've done well there, Mickey, but just to Chris's point, I don't think Millwall have done particularly well in that market recently. I know we've got Charlie Creswell, who's been absolutely superb from us from Leeds, but in general, I don't think our loan signings have been the best. And we've always, as you said, done relatively well. We've seemed to, the link with Spurs seems to have dried up, where we used to get the likes of Jamie O'Hara and Harry Kane and Andros Townsend in the past. But generally, it's not a market that I don't think we've utilised very well. And the players we have got seem to have been clubs cast off, but that's probably for another story, just a Millwall transfer policy more than anything else.
You think there's been sort of, with Millwall, you seem to be a club that kind of takes to your own, and you think of players like Billy Mitchell that have come through, or stalwarts, you seem to love those sorts of players, but maybe for players that have kind of come from, I just can't, Arsenal on loan and, club places, Chelsea on loan, I just don't know if it's the sort of place for those sorts of players.
Gabe, I think you've hit the nail on the head there. I think certainly other clubs, certainly Premier League clubs, I think everyone, you talk about Sheffield United, Burnley, they've all got Man City loanees. Even Ken mentioned their Man City loanees. Pep's not going to look at us and go, let's send a couple of good young players to Mill. No, it's just not going to do it, right? And I think that's a case in point. Just because of the style that we play, I don't think top Premier League sides would probably want their youngsters to come to us. Bit of a detriment to the way we play, really. But I think then on the flip side of that, if you look at Charlie Creswell, who we've taken from Leeds this year, we've really turned him into a man. He's been absolutely top draw for us, and I think he will go back to Leeds, whether they come down or not, near enough Premier League ready for next season. And battle hardened, more importantly.
And just on that, I think that's part of why we didn't get people. It's not because of the reputation of the club, but we had Steve Bruce in charge at the start of the season, and I think there's an element there where people will have looked and gone. Everybody hears that Steve Bruce's training is utterly lackadaisical, that there's not a great deal of coaching that goes on, and some of his in-game tactics were laughable. And why would you want to expose a young player to that? I think if we'd had Carlos Corberán from the start of the season, I think we would have got some quality Premier League loans, because
Leeds would have happily given him their top players, wouldn't they? Because he's been there before, so 100%. Places like that.
But they wouldn't trust Bruce with them.
Obviously, yeah.
You're on mute, Mickey.
I do it every show, don't worry. Talking about loanees and all that, there seems to be more teams now looking internationally, rather than just, we've obviously Vincent Kompany specialising in the Belgium league and looked at taking in a few Belgium. We've got hold of a couple of players from outside of Europe, obviously Germany and Holland, etc. I mean, do you think now that because the homegrown players, to a degree, are being snapped up at big money with Premiership teams, that now the Championship needs to look either at the lower end players for development, or looking at half decent performing players in Europe who we'll be able to get a lot cheaper than a 21-year-old playing at Arsenal, who they probably want 4 million for, where we could probably get, like we got, a 19, 20-year-old from Holland who on stats is much better than the boy at, I can't think of his name now, we've done an article on it, from the boy at Man City, Anthony at Man City, Man United, not Man City, who on paper is a much better prospect, yet one's worth 85 million and one we brought for 1.7. And he's performing. But honestly, we've done an article on our website where we looked at the stats. One of our guys wrote an article based on the stats, and Fleming was head and shoulders above Anthony.
That's extraordinary, isn't it?
Absolutely, it's madness.
Right.
But literally, it was the fact that one played for Brazil and one was in a shop window and one's gone to a Premiership for that money. But Fleming, more assists, more goals, massively amount more goals, and even this season, more goals, more assists, everything. Yet, one's got an 80 million pound price rise. So, to you guys, I don't mind who wants to come in first, but to you guys, do you think that the international market now is a much more lucrative option for Championships? So much so that we've started scouting in Europe now. We have for the last year or two, where predominantly for years we just never looked in Europe.
I mean, I'll happily jump in on this just because we are probably the worst club in the Championship for actually scouting properly.
That's quite bad, because I know a scout I used to work with a guy who's good friends with Steve Bruce's dad was Stan Tenner, who used to work for, who used to be a Burnley manager as well, but he used to be your opposition and used to give a bit of advice with Steve Bruce. So yeah, if you're watching, hi Dan.
Well, look. I mean, I know a fair bit about the recruitment department at the Albion because, like, my housemate was one of the recruitment guys there back before Luke Dowling came in and decimated our very, very good recruitment team. So I know how it used to run. I know how brilliant and efficient it was, and how they scouted all corners of the earth. And I also know what we do now, which is not a lot, really. I mean, you've only got our scouting. We just don't find value in the market anymore. That our summer recruitment was so blindingly obvious that actually myself and Pete on the podcast called Wallace and Swift. There's Wallace and Swift transfers before the season had even finished. You know, I mean, they were so glaringly obvious, yet we couldn't afford them. You can see now we can't afford the contracts with the money that we've got in the club. Apparently, Brandon Thomas Asante came about because Matt Smith, the Salford striker, is Steve Bruce's son-in-law or something like that. Eric Peters was Steve Bruce's neighbour, lived a couple of doors down. That's how that one came about. I mean, it's so 1980s the way we go about finding players. And then, I mean, even the managers before that, we just allowed Valerian Ishmael to go and get whatever ex-Barnsley players he wanted to get. There's no logic, there's no thought process, there's no imagination. We've not, and I think the bottom line is it comes down to how's your club run? Do you have you actually applied a sporting director structure and a proper scouting network and spent your money in those areas and invested to save money further down the line? Because in the end, finding value like Zion Fleming, who I'm certain you will sell for an absolute pretty penny in a few years' time, are you investing in those areas and actually making your club sustainable for the long term, or are you just ridiculous like us and spending money like just basically you might get good players like Swift and Wallace, and nobody's denying they're good players, but you have to pay a premium for them, and that is not sustainable in the long term. You know, look, we've given them both contracts. I think Swift's contract runs till he's 31 and Wallace's contract runs till he's 32. There's no resale value on them, whereas you bring in Zion Fleming and you are going to be able to resell him for quite a lot of money. And you look at Jokeresh. You what did you bring him in for? 700k. You'll sell him for 10 times that. And that is that anybody can tell you that Swift and Wallace are good signings for a Championship football club. It does not take a genius to work that out. Where it is quality recruitment is going and finding your Jokereshes, your Hamers, your Flemings, and that's literally just picking on Millwall and Coventry. I could go through pretty much any team in the Championship that's reasonably well run. Look at all the players Brentford have found over the last few years. I mean, they constantly sold their best player and then went and got Ollie Watkins or Syed Benrahma or Ivan Toney. And every time they sold a Neil Maupay or an Ollie Watkins, you thought, oh, this is trouble here for Brentford. No, they just went and replaced them with someone better because they're well scouted. And
just to touch on your point there, Chris, though, I would say certainly from a Millwall perspective, our recruitment is something we talk about regularly, or I certainly do on our shows. It's awful. But I think
you leave our football manager specialist alone.
Do
you not know our head of, just for these guys who don't, our head of recruitment less than 10 years ago was a sports reporter for the local newspaper who then ran a Millwall focused website, fan page, and then got a job with recruitment within us. Didn't work out that well then. Then he got a job with Stoke, where he went to Stoke for a year and a half, 2 years, and now he's come back as director of transfers, sporting fucking and whatever other bollocks you want to put in the job title. So,
but Ben, I mean, right, if I can just kind of come on to that, it's 4 top half finishes in 5 seasons for Millwall on a bottom 6 budget. So I suppose from an outside perspective, it's kind of interesting that you're saying that Millwall's recruitment is awful, and yet from an outside perspective, it looks like you've got the most out of your resources. So how do you sort of reconcile?
So, yeah, I mean, that's a great point, Gabe, but I think what I'm trying to get at is generally our long-term sell-on plan is pretty bad. I mean, so you look like Jeb Wallace, for example. Us letting him go for nothing is absolutely criminal and has probably set us back 5 years in terms of a transfer budget, I would say. Just things like that. So maybe not even maybe not looking at it from a recruitment perspective, but a contract management perspective is probably a better way of looking at it. But going back to Mickey's point, we're certainly now, I think Fleming being a case in point of, we're being told we're going to look into the European markets more because we might be able to get better value for money, and that certainly seems right. I think now what we have done, and it's quite widely spoken about, is that we have got a good sell-on fee or sell-on value in Fleming's contract for
it's interesting, Ben.
as well.
So it's interesting you say that, because I remember watching an end of season interview Rowett did back in 2021 when he kind of hinted that he would look more domestically in terms of recruitment, and he wouldn't necessarily want to bring in swathes of players. But I kind of feel like the ones that have worked out, so Vogel, Sammer and Fleming, they've both kind of bought into the Millwall ethos. And for me, if you're Millwall Football Club, you've got the players who do that have got to do that, because it's such a unique club with unique expectations and a unique culture. You know, Steve Morrison, for example, he didn't do anything anywhere else. You know, other clubs hate him, and yet Millwall fans love him. And it's the same with, you can't be a Millwall legend if you're not hated anywhere else.
And just going to a point on the resources.
Steve Morrison isn't a Millwall legend, by the way, but yeah, go on.
What?
He's not.
Oh my God.
We have a regular debate about who's a legend at a club, but we'll say that for another time. But yeah, go back again onto your point with resources. Yeah, look, we overachieve every year, right? We shouldn't be where we are. So I think in transfer wise, we do okay for now or for that season. We seem to have quite a high turnover every year. We've got a lot of loan players again this year, so we're going to lose 4 or 5. I think we've got 8 out of contracts in the summer. So again, it's going to be another bit of a rebuild next year. So I think we do well every season to keep on the coattails of obviously that top 6, considering our budget. If we can pick up another Fleming next year, great. I don't think we will, but hopefully we can and look into those foreign markets a little bit more.
I mean, we were a bit lucky.
Sorry, I was just going to say on that, Mickey, just to Gabe's point, I don't think it's about foreign or domestic in terms of transfer market. I don't think it matters. I think for most clubs, particularly in a post-COVID era where most clubs in the Championship are financially struggling, it's about, is the worth of the player that you're signing, once you get into the last 2 years of their contract or the last 18 months of their contract, is it going to be greater than what you paid for them? And I think that's the important thing. Going back to Brentford, because I think they're the best example of this. You've got they've picked up Ivan Toney and Ollie Watkins from domestically, but then they've also picked up the likes of Saeed Benrahma, from abroad. So it's not really about foreign or domestic. It's about can you get players for a price where and also where they will develop and become worth more, because the problem that most clubs are finding now is that they can't afford to make losses on signings. It's certainly the situation we're in. We've painted ourselves into a corner because we signed the likes of Carlin Grant and Grady Diangana for huge sums of money on big long-term contracts, and they're not worth what we paid for them, which means we can't get rid of them either.
It's been the exact same at Reading for years. And I mean, like part of the problem actually is, I think almost a lot of Championship clubs have fallen into the situation around putting players on high wages on fear of actually then losing them on obviously the hope of then getting to the Premier League. And too many clubs have now seen their wages inflate. And when they inflate so much, it doesn't matter if you then want to sell them. You know, we had it years ago with the likes of McCleary, Gunter, you know, that we couldn't end up shipping them because like they're on £25,000-30,000 at Reading, you know, and then it doesn't actually matter how much you then want to shift them. You then can't shift them. And Reading has been the prime example of that for the past 10 years. If you look at how many players we've actually sold for an actual value, it's pitifully low. You know,
I
especially
totally
last
agree
years.
with the point that you're making, Matt. I think both of you are making great points, but I do think as well, you've kind of got to balance the sort of developmental ethos of can we invest in assets and build the value of the squad with making sure you've got the right culture in place, because you can sign someone who's got the best data in the world and looks incredibly talented and you got great value for it. But you've also got to think about the dynamics, the cohesion, how it's all going to look on the pitch. So if we talk about Millwall's strategy towards things, having experienced players like Jake Cooper, like Sean Hutchinson, like even Ryan Leonard in terms of what he brings in terms of professionalism, I don't think you can't tell me that some of those players haven't made an impact towards the culture of the team that's allowed them to punch above its weight. So I think there's different ways of going about it. But I think whichever way, you've got to have a certain element, a certain core of 3 or 4 players who set the standards in the dressing room, who pull a young player aside and say, no, we don't do this. This isn't how we do things. I think you need that culture in place as well. I think that's really important.
Yeah. But
I
that's
agree with that.
but that's all part of the scouting, Gabe. That's all part of the scouting, because you're not just numbers on a sheet. It's not Moneyball here. You know,
Sure.
numbers on a sheet mean nothing really, unless you're actually finding out about players' personalities. One of my big problems at the Albion is I don't feel like we've been doing the research on who these guys are as people. I was actually at an event yesterday where I had the pleasure of sitting on a panel with Paul Warne, and he was saying that the one change he'd like to make in the game is that it was mandatory for players to actually go through a psychiatric testing before they could make a transfer, so that he could understand what kind of individual he was signing as well as what kind of player. And I thought that was absolutely bang on the money, because, I mean, take us spending 8 million quid on Ken Zahor. Probably if you'd spoke to anybody who'd worked with him, surely they've got to tell you that the guy is mentally weak,
Allegedly.
No, watch him. I mean,
he's got bigger lawyers than me.
Yeah, no, I mean,
we had him, Chris. We had him on loan. We know about him.
I know you can't believe you took him. What was it? 1 penalty he scored for you. I mean, the guy is one of, if he's for me the worst signing we've ever made. I mean, you've only got to look at his minutes on the pitch and his goals versus how much he cost to see that. But my point there is, you might look at Ken Zahor and his data might actually be all right in that Warnock team that got promoted for Cardiff. I don't know. I wasn't looking at Cardiff's data at that point, but surely to goodness, somebody is going to say to you, yeah, but when the going gets tough, that guy is not going to get going. If you have the right people in place, and I think Gabe, I think you bang on the money, but I think to the point, and what Paul Warne said to me yesterday, I think it's something that needs to be a part of the scouting network, and in a lot of clubs, it's probably not.
That's such a great. If I can just add one more thing to what Chris has said, because I know we both had a big say, but I follow some of the lower leagues, and Exeter, when they won promotion from League Two that last season, their player of the year was a lad called Timothy Dieng, who had just been relegated with 2 or 3 clubs in succession. And he was absolutely brilliant. And what they did was they drilled down and got right to the bottom of it all. And they found out that he was an absolutely brilliant character and was very good individually in those relegated seasons, and was just a bit unlucky with some of the clubs that he happened to find himself at. And I think that's a crucial part of this recruitment thing that we're talking about, is being able to find those players that aren't obvious, as Chris has said, with, you know, your Wallaces and your Swifts.
I'm gonna come to we'll come to this question, and it looks as if Glenn from the Sky Blue Hub has been looking at my notes, to be fair, but we'll come on to this question. His question is, which championship team has been the underachiever this season, and why do you think that? Again, we'll go random. We'll go with you, Matt. And you're not allowed to say yourself.
Peace. No, I wouldn't say we were underachieving, given I had us for relegation. I'd probably say, from where I had them at the start of the season, would be West Brom, because West Brom, I think I had as one of the strongest squads probably on paper at the start of the season. I think I can't remember if I had them top 2, but I think they might have been third in my listings. yeah, you look at the players that they brought in the summer. You can talk about the money that was involved in the contracts, etc., that they signed. But when you sign top championship players, you kind of expect them to be near the top. It was probably obviously helped by having a pretty incompetent manager for the first couple of months. That's kind of led them to where they are now. But interesting kind of how it's kind of all faded off a bit for West Brom now as well. Now Corbrand's got a longer contract as well. Obviously, I think it's only 3 wins in 11, I think, since he's had his contract. So it's just
but that's coincided with the wealth of injuries. It's nothing to do with Corbrand taking his foot off the gas. It's we've just got half our side out injured.
I mean, if we're honest, beginning of the season when you boys signed Swift and Wallace, we thought you were just going to be fucking pissing the league.
Yeah. I did, by the way. I said 13th before the season.
I know you didn't, and you and I had a bit of back and forth on Twitter about that. I'll be honest. I didn't go as far as Gabe. I thought we'd make the playoffs, but I certainly wasn't buying into any of the Albion are going to be top 2 stuff because I'd seen us the year before, and I mean Swift and Wallace are good players, but they are only 2 players. We'd still got DK coming back from a 12-month long injury, and look, the rest of the lads had let us down, and we'd finished 11th the previous season. There was nothing to get excited about there, and it's still largely the squad that let Ishmael down. To be honest with you.
So, what championship team do you think has been the biggest underachiever this season? And obviously, you can't say yourself.
I was going to say, I mean, I don't think we have underachieved, given that once we got rid of Steve Bruce, we've actually had automatic promotion form. I think what we've done under Corbrand is unbelievable. It's a toss-up between 2 for me. Stoke at the start of the season, I looked at a forward line of Tyrese Campbell, Brown, Delap and Gale, and I thought that is frightening. I thought surely I'm so sick to death of tipping Stoke for top 6 and then finishing mid-table, and I thought I'm not going to do it this year, and then I did, and then they've gone and finished. They've gone into mid-table yet again. But
Dwight Gale hasn't been a goal scorer for quite a few seasons now, though.
No, he hasn't. He hasn't, but you just buy into the narrative of Dwight Gale is 20 goals. I mean, look, I still remember the guy who thumped in 23 for us. You know what I mean? He was frightening for us.
On the right for front 3, Chris.
yeah, exactly. I'm always going to have rose-tinted glasses when it comes to Dwight Gale anyway. So there was Stoke, but the other one for me is Watford. And I think the thing with Watford is, I mean, there's 6 teams in the Championship that have changed their manager 3 times this season. I mean, first of all, that's criminal. But the other thing with that is the other 5 of those 6 are in the bottom 6. The only one that's not is Watford, and I don't understand. I think their chickens have come home to roost, to be honest with you, with their approach to constantly changing managers and chopping and changing. Because you look at what they've done, and Rob Edwards has gone on to do probably the manager of the season job at Luton. And they got rid of him after, I mean, what was it, 7, 8 games? It was something stupid, wasn't it?
Do you know what, though, Chris? I almost think Rob Edwards being brilliant for Luton and being a contender for Manager of the Year, although I think Company will win it, it could be a bit of a kick up the backside for Watford, because if Rob Edwards had left Watford and not done much, you almost feel like it kind of risks almost justifying how they've gone about things, how they've treated people and managers. Whereas the fact that Rob Edwards is massively outperforming Watford with his current club and them being their sort of bitter rivals, I almost think surely if anything's going to sort of shake the club into action, that's going to be it.
Do you think there is anything that would actually do that though, Gabe? Or do you think that they're just a bit of a basket case? Because I just think it's the latter. I don't think whilst these owners are in charge of Watford, I don't think they're ever going to change their ways. I mean, look, they had to dispel rumours that they were going to sack Wilder earlier in the week, you know, and whilst they're almost certainly not going to sack him this season, I would happily have a charity bet with anybody who wants it that Watford start the season with a different manager to Chris.
Oh yeah,
I think next season with a different one.
Well, yeah, I mean they're talking about that foreign one and everyone's going, but yeah, that was the boys at Second Tier Podcast who started that rumor from the
Well, no, they
Football
believe
Insider, wasn't
Footy
it?
Insider, yeah. And if you're going to do that, then you deserve everything you get. To be honest with you, but nonetheless, the point is, I will guarantee, I will happily, like I say, have a charity bet with anyone who wants to go up against me on it. That I will say Watford won't start next season with Chris Wilder as their manager.
Can I drop in a question here though as well? Because you talk about Watford being the underachievers of the season. When you look at the players that they kept last year as well, you could probably make a very strong case for that. Part of it is due to the players that they kept from the Premier League. Do you think they keep the Ismail Assars, the João Pedros, and that to next season? Because obviously
Pedro goes.
Yeah, Pedro goes. The problem with Sarr a little bit is who's good. I don't know how long he's got left on his contract, and that's always the big thing. But it seems like the money they've asked for him has been pretty big in the past. And
about
I mean,
30 million, wasn't it?
Yeah, it scared Liverpool off at one point, didn't it? Apparently. So I don't know. It's always difficult. It just depends what kind of contracts they've got. I mean, look, it's like the whole thing with it's like the whole thing with Will Zaha as well at Crystal Palace. Why hasn't Zaha moved on from Crystal Palace in the years where he's been brilliant there? It's because he's Palace's best paid player by a country mile, and whilst a bigger club might come in for him, they're not going to make him their best paid player because he's not. So he's better off being the best paid player at a smaller club than he is being a middle of the squad player at a larger club. And I suppose that comes in for Sarr. Can he get a club who can actually pay him the wage that he wants and also will give him the first team football that he's probably going to want as well? It can be challenging, especially when you reach a certain age as a player.
That's fair enough.
You're on mute again, Mickey.
I know, I do it every show. And it's even worse. It's even worse when it's live because I can't edit the fucking thing out. So, yeah. Even though we don't edit, but sometimes I might just edit the bits of the guys going, Mickey, you dickhead, you're on mute. So normally I try and edit those out. I'm giving away all the secrets now.
For the next show.
Yeah. No, I'll just do a show of me just going, and someone else just going, dickhead, you're on mute, and that's it. Do you know what I mean? Ben will no doubt do that, but yeah. Ken, and then I'll come to you, Ben. Who do you think the underachievers are?
The two W's for me, Watford and West Brom. Without a shadow of a doubt, I thought West Brom would be above us and up there, simply because the players they've got and the money they've probably got more than money budget-wise coming down from the Premiership, and I certainly expected them to be, above us at this stage of the season. Obviously, they've had injuries as well, like everybody else has, and issues and stuff like that. And the other one was Watford, who are a crazy club, really. Another one that's come down from the Premiership. Another one that got quality players in their squad, but just haven't achieved nowhere near the success that they should be, really, with the players they've got. We played them on Monday. They took a 2-0 lead against us, believe it or not, because we were a bit useless in the first half. But second half, it was one-way traffic, and we were lucky not to win the game. But they were useless second half. Their heads went down, and they didn't want to know. As soon as we went to 2-1, they just didn't want to know. There's only one team going to get back in the game, and that was us. And it amazed me, with the budget they've got and the players they've got, that they could be in that situation. And I know they've changed their manager. I don't know what the reasons are. They'll keep changing their manager. But I mean, Chris Wilder's a decent manager. He's got a fairly good record, hasn't he, in the Championship, to be honest. So I would keep him if they could, but whether he stays there is another matter. He might get fed up eventually with the powers that be above, obviously the ones that make the decisions.
I ask a question to the panel. Mine would be, because we talk about underperforming teams. I'll
tell you what.
Oh, go for it, Mickey.
One sec. So his underachievers are, and then come with your question. Go on, Ben.
Yeah, without doubt for me, Watford. Quickly before we go into that, Middlesbrough beating Norwich 1-0, which is a massive result for us, Ken, and maybe you, Chris.
Yes.
But without doubt for me, Watford. I think the players they managed to keep hold on that Chris and Matt have already gone on to with Sarr and Pedro, obvious quality was there, but the players they managed to bring in as well, Premier League players, Hamza Chowdhury, Keenan Davis, the other chap from Villa, Courtney House, the centre half. I mean, yeah, without doubt for me, Watford, I just thought they would be I thought they'd win the league. I thought they would be the typical yo-yo that they always do. And yeah, like you, sorry, Ken, I think you just said it. Chris Wilde, I think, is a top manager. I think they really need to stick with him and just give him some time. And going back to Chris's point, they are just a horrendously bad run club. They're awful. They need some sort of longevity. Yeah. Give Chris Wilder some time and he will sort them out with that budget and that squad. He just will do because he's a good manager. So yeah, without doubt, Watford.
Interesting. Go on, Gabe, ask your question, fella.
Well, I'm just curious to hear what the panel think about. Given West Brom, I think it's very possible that West Brom, Watford and Norwich have all got their various challenges for next season. It's possible that all three aren't going to be in the top six because Norwich are going to have a massive rebuild. West Brom need to get their recruitment in order. Watford are a bit of a basket case, as Chris has mentioned. And those are the three clubs that have previously been the ones that have been yo-yoing between the Championship and the Premier League. So I'm kind of wondering, do we think that the Championship's going to be quite open next season? And clubs like Ken's, Coventry, could they have a bit of optimism that could be their year next season if they stand down in this one?
Well, just on us, just to give the, I'll leave everybody else to talk about the other ones that you've mentioned. But just to sort of, just to give the background on us, if we don't go up this season, which is looking extremely likely that we won't, we're going to be nowhere near next year. And by the way, Mickey, you don't need to throw any allegedlys in this because this is all in the published accounts, but that were released last week. I mean, we've taken out a £20 million loan from MSD Holdings, which the repayments are going to kick in, I think, in 2024. We simply haven't got the money to pay for them because it was Ron Gourlay said that the reason that we've took the loan is to pay for the day-to-day running of the football club, basically to cover the contracts that we've already signed up for. Kieran Maguire has allegedly found that the owner has taken out 2 million in loans and then loaned it back to the club at a higher interest rate than it was taken. It's in the accounts that he has taken a £5 million loan that he has been promising to pay back since for about the last 12 months. That's all in the published accounts. We are beyond skint, and it is in the chief executive's notes that for us to continue to be a going concern, this is pretty much word for word what Ron Gourlay put in the chief executive's notes. For us to continue to be a going concern next season, we are relying on player trading this summer. So to cut through the bull on that, the long and short of it is we have got to sell our most valuable assets this summer to continue functioning. So
Wallace, Yokuslu.
Well, Wallace is a difficult one because of his age. He's going to be a hard one to sell. But DK, Dara O'Shea, will because he's young, will probably go. Swift, if we can find a buyer, these possibly even Brandon Thomas Asante, another good young player. We're basically we're not going to lose the guys that we'd like to get rid of, which is your Carlin Grants. No disrespect to them, but just purely on their age. Kyle Bartley, Matt Phillips. People, older campaigners who we would probably prefer to sell. We're going to lose the younger guys who were the future of the football club, maybe even Josh Griffiths, England under-21 goalkeeper. These are the kind of players we're going to lose in the summer. If we don't go up this year, I'm telling you right now, we're a better bet for relegation than we are for promotion.
I'd probably agree with that, to be honest, right now.
Yeah. And I think one of the things is, though, if you're getting to a point where you're needing to obviously sell a lot of players, and you look at some of the players that have been brought in and kind of, I guess, some of the what Reading fans would call Ron Gourlay contracts that certain players have been put on. Your Swifts. I mean, if he was on the reported wages that was out there when he obviously signed from Reading, no one's going to be able to buy him because no one's going to pay his wages, and it's going to be another Reading situation. And to be honest, Ron Gourlay was only at Reading for 18 months. 18 months following our playoff loss to Huddersfield, he was there for. He left in the November, I think it was following, and he did that much damage to Reading FC's infrastructure. Because you look at all the players that he put on contracts at Reading, ironically, one of them being Swift, Paul McShane, Gareth McCleary, Chris Gunter. The list that there was about John O'Shea, like there was 5 actually. David Myler brought in, Christ, God alive, all these players as well that were on long contracts. Some of them we did actually pay off and just cut our losses there. But it's yeah, you know, like I think it's
and that's
one thing.
sorry, that's the other thing about Reading. Like Eamon Doolan did some incredible work with the academy, and it feels like a lot of that's gone to tatters because there's players like Rob Dickey and Dom Hyam and who've just resurged and
well, I think a lot of it. A lot of just a quick one on the thing with Eamon Dolan and the academy. A lot of it is actually just like I think a number of the players, to be fair, have been good players, but Reading have never been in the position to actually integrate them into the first team. There's always been someone ever so slightly better at that time, which it's that old adage. Because you look at when we sold Rob Dickey, I think he was 21, 22 and only had one appearance. For our first team, how long do you keep him? Jack Stacey was very much the same. How much longer do you keep him? And you're always going to get certain youngsters that leave your academy, leave your club, and then will flourish elsewhere. Luke Southwood could potentially be another one, to be fair, because he's gone to Cheltenham this year. Been really absolutely fantastic for him. But you look at him last year, and he got his chance last year in the Championship, and quite frankly, it was a car crash. You know, it was
kind of hard. I think like the Cardiff away, for example, he made a string of brilliant saves.
He was brilliant at our place, by the way.
There was a few games where he was very good, but there was too many times which you could flag on, and you look at certain mistakes that he made. The command of his box, he couldn't come for crosses. Like he was coming for crosses, dropping them. I mean, there was a shot that came from 30 yards against Hull that he spooned into the back of his net. You know, like that. There was just too many instances where you look at in that season, you think like it's not going to work. But sometimes that player needs somewhere else to go and to restart his career, and that's the thing with youth players.
Maybe League One is a better level for him. Maybe it was a bit too much too soon because he went from like Eastleigh and loans like that. I don't know if he had a loan in League 1 or 2 before he became Reading's first choice.
Just really quickly, guys, can just because I think it's only fair, can I just come back on Gourlay a little bit, because I appreciate how Reading fans feel about him. And look, I was on your very podcast talking about him earlier in the season, and he hasn't helped at times. He hasn't helped, but I would like to point out that the rot set in long before Gourlay.
It was the same with us. Yeah, it was the same with us. It was just the icing on the cake.
We've had this owner for 6 years. They then brought in Luke Dowling as sporting director, who basically tore up our academy, tore up our recruitment team, which are two, our entire academy team went and worked for Villa. And what a surprise. All our best academy products, Timur Ogbenham, Finn Azaz, Louis Barry, have all gone to Aston Villa. It's not a coincidence. And also, like, the financial state of the club when Gourlay came in was already precarious. There's no way I can know this for certain. So this is my opinion. It's not fact. I'd like to point that out. But I can only imagine that the instruction for Gourlay in the summer was bet the farm on promotion from the Championship, which is why we went and paid big contracts for Yokoslu, Swift, Wallace, all these guys. I think that's come from the owner. Get to the Premier League. Get to the Premier League before these parachute payments have run out. The one truly criminal thing that Ron Gourlay has done that we can never forgive him for, because I will let those contracts slide, and actually his communication has been pretty good in the last. He's the only one talking to the fans, and I do thank him for that. The one thing I will never ever forgive him for is after giving his mate the job on a short-term basis, giving Bruce more time from the summer onwards when he was clearly not the right man for the job, and then dallying so long to sack him to the point where the instructions seemed to come from above his head to sack him. And why we didn't, when we had won one game all season, as you guys said, the underachievers of the season, but we're 2 points a game practically under Corberan. If we'd pulled the trigger on Bruce, there's every chance that we would be where Middlesbrough are now.
He's got a history of doing that, Ron Gourlay, though, because he did the exact same with Paul Clement at Reading. So, like with me and Ron Gourlay, there's no smoke without fire, and you almost think you've got to, like, yes, you get employed to do a job, and it's ultimately on direction of the owner. He's the one that pays the wages at the end of the day, and runs the football club. It's his to do what he pleases with. But you can't be going and doing what well, I just can't see how someone like Ron Gourlay can think that doing what you guys did in the summer was a good strategy. You know, going for the wages that you guys did, because you've now just dug the hole and dug almost.
It's not a good strategy. But if you want promotion immediately, we had no scouting network to go and find Zion Flemings and people like that. We had no scouting network to find them. So you have to go for the blindingly obvious ones. And unfortunately, the blindingly obvious ones, because everyone wants them, because we blew Burnley out the water for Wallace. I mean, how much money must we have thrown at that to blow Burnley, who had parachute payments and all this money coming in from the players they were selling? We blew them out the water. So, yeah, I mean...
Or Burnley decided actually that you probably weren't going to fit in their squad. But anyway, Ken, come on, mate. This is turning into a West Bromwich Albion and Reading show. And it's a championship round table. So come on, let's get this Midlands accent, this mid-country accent back on the airways. I can't even remember what the question is. So, Ken, just say whatever you want to say, mate.
I was about to say, I'm pleased you went to Ken. I can't remember what Gabe's question was now.
I can't even, mate. So, yeah.
It was that long ago.
I'm used to this. No, I just thought, how open's the Championship going to be next season if West Brom are in the problems they've got?
Listen. We all know, sitting here, anybody can beat anybody in this league on the day. If we've seen the results, look at Huddersfield now. Who'd have thought? You'd have put your money on Huddersfield going down, wouldn't you? Yeah. Look at them, and he pulled them out. You know, he pulled them out of it. So you just need a bit. It's all confidence as well. It's down to confidence. I'm sure it is. And if you've got the right manager at the helm to do the job, I think like that Warnock's coming in and doing a brilliant job. But they're the same players, basically. Same players. Yeah, he hasn't really changed the players.
But I think it's about, as we touched on it earlier, it's about that manager, that experience, that something about them. That, you know, with Warner, I mean, a few of us on our show have said, you know, we'd love to have Warner at the Den because he's good. But he played a blinder. When he played us, for the 3-4 days before he played us, I love Millwall. Millwall were blinding. Their fans are great. They do this, do that. And then we literally had 3 or 4 days of every local paper he'd done a story with, and every national and all of this he'd done stories, and they were all leaking out. And then, come the day, he just fucking wrapped our player up so that Fleming couldn't do anything. And then afterwards, he went, "Yeah, I've just seen that no one was wrapping him up, so I told our big lad, just don't let him out your sight." And because we tied him up, he gave us access, and that's it. We went on and done it, and he tied us right up. But that is what he's all about.
Not to steal Ken's limelight, but just on Huddersfield as well. Not only has Warnock done a fantastic job. You look at their last 5 games. Drew 1-0 with Norwich, beat us, beat Middlesbrough, and then drew 2-2 with Blackburn. All teams in the top half of the table. So it's not like he's done it against the teams around him. He's done it with all teams fighting at the top of the league. So it's an even more impressive job. But yeah, back to you, Ken.
Ken, can I just ask you a question? Because we're talking about managers here. Do you worry about somebody coming sniffing for yours? Because I find it weird that when jobs come, I'm sure you love the fact that Robbins is never seems to be anywhere near the links. But I find it bizarre because if you look at managers over the last 10 years through the EFL and ask, you know, who's done the best job, Mark Robbins has got to be there or thereabouts.
He's done a fantastic job. You know, he's done brilliant. You know, on the budget, and all the things, all the other spanners that have been thrown in the works. You know, along the way, with the ground fiasco and the owners and all sorts of stuff. You know, he's done a fantastic job. But I think with Robbins, he's very loyal now. He did leave. If you remember, it's his second time he's been here. He left us originally to go to Huddersfield. And then he came back. And I think he learned his lesson, you know, that the grass is always greener on the other side. I was surprised when he come back, to be honest. I didn't think they'd have him back, but you know, fair play. He's come back and he's done a fantastic job, you know, and I don't think he will leave very easily. I think he wants to achieve the ultimate with us. I think he wants to get us back in the Premier League as quick as possible, whether that's going to be this season in the playoffs, whether that's going to be next season or the season after that. But, you know, I think that's his aim. I am surprised none of the big boys have come in for him, to be honest. Yes, I am surprised about that. I don't think he'd leave for another Championship club. I think if he's going to leave, I think it'd be a team in the Premier League.
Just to add to your point there, though, Ken, I think there's a couple of things here which are, firstly, I mean, I don't want to for a moment underplay how amazing a job Mark Robins has done at Coventry because he's a club legend, where's the statue going to go and all the rest of it. But when he's not managed Coventry, if you look at his other stints as a manager at Huddersfield, at Barnsley, at Scunthorpe, not great.
Not great, right? Yeah.
And on the other side of that, I think that if you're a manager that doesn't have this illustrious managerial pedigree, and you're, I think is he in his 50s now, late 50s?
Yeah.
I don't necessarily know that there is that appeal for him to get Premier League jobs. So for me, I see him staying at Coventry for another, 5, 6, 7 years, just because I don't see him there necessarily being a huge sort of lucrative appeal to Mark Robins in the market elsewhere, as incredible a manager he is for your lot. And I'm sure that suits you down to the ground as well.
Yeah, I think certain managers suit certain clubs, don't they? Sometimes if your face fits and the surroundings fit and the people he works with are good. He's brought a great backroom staff in who are fantastic, and he's got a great bunch of players and he loves the club. And I do think his face fits, and I don't think he'll leave anytime soon, to be honest. It'd take a very, very big offering for him to move. And I certainly don't think he'll move to another Championship club, and it'd have to be a major offer. And I'd be very surprised if he did move now, to be honest. I think he's with us for the long term, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
We touched on it before, didn't we? Like how dangerous it can be when you look at Nathan Jones, thinking that the grass is greener.
Yeah.
No, exactly. Before we carry on, those of you, I did say probably be about 40 minutes or so. We've gone over an hour. I'm thinking we could go on maybe for another 20 minutes or so.
Just
go up for an hour and a half. But look, we can go on as long as you guys are around to do it. If you can't do it, then just drop in the chat that you need to shoot and just come out.
I reckon.
Yeah, no, we're not going to be here that long, Gab. But listen, there's loads of comments what we need to get through. There's some great questions coming in, and I'd like to hit some of these comments, but I do understand that it is Friday night and you guys might be busy. So if you do need to chip off,
we haven't got lives,
just
mate.
let me go. All right, okay, well that's fine.
Mickey, can I just finish on Gabe's question because I didn't get a chance?
Of course you can.
I think the openness of the Championship, I think even next year it's going to be bigger because I think the 3 clubs that are going to come down, I think the 3 in the bottom 3 of the Premier League now, I think are all going to be in trouble next year because I think Forest are going to have a clear out. I think Leicester are going to have a clear out, and I don't know with Southampton. It's a big question mark. So I think even more so next year, I don't think you're going to have a Burnley in the league or a Sheffield United or even a Borough if they go up. So I think it's going to be really, really open next year.
I also think, I mean, Gabe will know this thing, but I think is there 4 clubs what potentially could have gone administration so far this season in the Championship, or there was speculations with point deduction. I mean, Reading got it for something else. Wigan got points deduction as well, and there's a couple of others what are looking at point deductions and everything else. I think money within football now is so tight, and so many clubs over so many years have just spunk money for the sake of trying to get to the promised land, and it doesn't turn up, and then all of a sudden you hit the Premier, you get relegated from the Premiership. You lose half your players potentially because none of them want to take the pay cut. So they all try and desperately stay in the Prem. And then you filled in a load more players, try upping their wages to try and get good players. And then if you don't get promoted, you're then looking to get rid of those or look for other ones to try and stabilise the boat. But it never happens. And we are starting to see that massive divide between the Prem and Championship in finance, not in ability to a degree, but more in finance, I think, is starting to be unbelievable. I mean, we're quite lucky. We have a wage cap, which isn't bundles, but, probably about 15 grand a week, a cap. But some of the other clubs in the Premiership have got players on 40, 45,000 a week, which is not sustainable in this Championship. We're looking at, I mean, I know I've got a question up there at the bottom, what we'll come to in a sec, but I think we know why the Championship or the EFL, etc., are looking at tying up their own monetary for TV rights and everything else, because there's more money if they can do it themselves. The Premiership will look at doing it themselves because that money they can demand goes to them rather than paying a third party. And also you've got the data wrapped around it. If you've got fans buying matches from you direct for whatever price, you've then got their data. That data is worth more than what it is for their $11.99 or $9.99 to watch a game. It's worth a fortune. I mean, I don't know what you guys' thoughts are on that, but yeah, 3-0 by the way. Borough 3-0 up.
I was just going to say, I mean,
thanks to Ben for the updates.
to the point that you've been making, and to Gabe's initial.
I mean, Ken, go to you.
Yeah,
I've lost you.
Oh,
yeah. Ken doesn't seem to be moving on my screen.
no, he's very still, very still.
No. Go on, Chris. I lost you in sound. But go on.
Sorry, I was just going to say to the initial point, and saying it very, very quickly. I think the clubs that are run sustainably and actually have patience and build something over a period of time, like your Lutons, are actually going to flourish in the Championship in the coming years over your short-termism, spend a lot of money, throw it at it, try and get into the Premier League as fast as you can. Clubs like we've been. I think you're going to see your Lutons flourish over your West Brom types in the coming years. That's my personal opinion.
I think just to jump in quickly as well. I think you've got the new wage cap coming in the EFL in the coming seasons as well. With I think it's 90% of your spend, then 80, then 70% in a few years' time, isn't it? I think. So you've got that coming in, but like when you look at that, it's going to have to change the Premier League's or the Premier League clubs coming down philosophy quite a lot, because a lot of them are able now actually to keep their players because they're getting a £60 million cash injection on the first season they dropped down from the Premier League, which is quite frankly ludicrous when you think about it. You know, like West Brom, when you look at West Brom's losses this year, when that's taken into account, that's including their, I think it's £38 million parachute payment they got for year 2. You know, and when you look at the bumps of money these clubs are getting from the Premier League, because again, it's not the EFL that restricts that. The Premier League will say, "Oh, we give like £1.5 billion or something to the Football League every season." That's because they take into account the Premier League or the Premier League parachute payment money that they put into that. And what happens to it if those Premier League clubs go back up? It goes back to the Premier League and doesn't hit the EFL. But so it's a massive, massive problem.
The prime example you've got to look at is say Ipswich comes up and Southampton comes down. On the first day, on August the 6th, August the 4th next season, Southampton would already have 60 million in their bank account ready to buy players.
Yeah.
Ipswich will have probably barely £1 million for winning League One.
It's sickening. It's a massive, massive problem. But of course, that's governed by the Premier League, because it's the Premier League that sets the structure. It's the Premier League. Of course, you'll say that the EFL have to accept it, but the EFL probably rather accept that than try and push back. But something's got to be done on it, because
it's an unfair advantage, isn't it? For the teams coming down.
But sorry, Ken, to cut in there. The biggest problem is that we've had allegedly fucking idiots running the FA for so many years. And the people who run the Premiership are very clever, very smart people who repositioned themselves all those years ago into a standalone Premiership rather than the Barclays League or Barclays Premier League. And then it become out of the league and it become the Premiership, a standalone business where they could do all their own bartering, all their own things, all their own licensing and products and everything else away from the FA, and went, you can just have that. When actually, you've now got the Premier League, who runs the top half. You've then got the EFL, what runs the next 3 leagues. The FA's got England and the national leagues. And that's pretty much it. So they've literally dug themselves a big hole and let these other companies suddenly make billions and billions a year for themselves and screwed the middle teams in the middle.
Well,
because
the FA lost it in '92, but they can't do anything now. I mean, people keep going on about like Albion fans. I hear Albion fans saying, "Why? Where are the FA in all of this?" The FA have got no power over our ownership. It was signed off by the Premier League because we were in the Premier League at the time, and now if we had a new owner want to buy us, it would be the EFL signing it off. People need to realise the FA. They're not. They've got no power in this. That was done in 1992. You know.
Do you know what, Chris? I hate to bring politics into football because I know it can be a very divisive topic, but I think it's got to that stage. To be honest, I think this is now a political issue. I think if football wants to take control of the distribution of wealth, I think it needs some sort of government intervention.
Well, it's not going to happen.
We had that.
Not going to happen.
There's a white paper on the table.
It's not going to happen. Trust me, Premier League.
You'll have the Premier League clubs that, I mean, you already had pretty much all the Premier League owners coming out objectifying against it because, again, it will make them poorer because more money will end up coming to the Championship and the like. All they care about is the money that goes into their club at the end of the day, which, to be fair, that's probably all you would care about if that's your club, right?
Listen, you've got loads of EFL CEOs and other club senior management going, listen, we need this fans paper, we need a shadow board, we need this, we need that. If you really think that's going to come in, it's not. It's 3 years away at least. And in that 3 years, you're looking at someone with the greatest lobbying power in the world called the Premier League, who knows how to entertain people, knows how to wine and dine people and get their decisions on board. And they will smooch. They will smooch the government. They will smooch organisations. And they will bring in all their own regulations, which pretty much on the government side, what the government are looking to do, but under their terms. And they go, we don't need it now. We've got it all. Look, we're kicking Man City to bits. We're kicking this team to bits. We're doing this. EFL's going to do the same. Going, well, look, we held Reading to account. We've deducted them 3 points. We've done Wigan to so many points. We're going to do this team so many points who's done this. Why do we need government intervention? We don't. We can manage it ourselves.
That's what drives me.
Sorry, go on, Chris.
So I was just going to say, that's what drives me crackers as well. The punishments for this are points deductions. How does that punish the owners? Somebody explain to me how on earth deducting Wigan or Reading or back in the day Luton or Bolton or any one of these myriad of clubs that you could name who've had points deductions over the last 15 years. How has any of that punished the people in charge of the football clubs? How did Derby's points deductions punish Mel Morris? I'd love to know that. I'd love somebody to tell me that because I, for the life of me, cannot see it.
That's the nail on the head, really. You know, and because it's funny because the minute you have points deductions flirted about in the Premier League, you know, you had it when the Super League came in, and then people were saying, oh well, that doesn't punish the owners. It doesn't punish the owners. All it punishes is the fans. But it's like you look at every club once they come out of the Premier League, it's always points deductions. And it just like I say, it doesn't punish anyone apart from the fans because unless they want just relegation. And that's their punishment, you know.
I'm glad you mentioned the Super League, though, Matt, because I think that's a good example of how fan power and people power can have some sort of influence over the authorities and the mega rich people. Because at the same time, the Premier League is a brand, the TV companies as a brand. They're reliant on us as fans paying for tickets to watch football matches, paying for TV subscriptions. So collectively, we as people have the power. It's just that we've indirectly chosen to give that power up. But I think that the Super League and how quickly that was shut down, I think that shows there is still hope for us. Not much hope.
to a point, Gabe. But what I would also say is that those clubs who entered into that Super League, and sorry, I know we're slightly veering off away from the champ, but it's all interconnected because the money problems are there in the Championship, and it all filters down when the money is too much at the top. It filters down into problems below. The bottom line is the clubs who entered into the Super League, they may not have got a Super League, but what they did is they still got a reform of the UEFA Champions League that is a Super League in everything but the name. So the reality is, yes, there was an element of fan power that it got the Super League shut down, but they still got what they wanted in the end. And you're not telling me that if they hadn't ended up getting what they wanted, that they would have just rolled over and had their belly scratched. I don't believe it.
Okay, I'll put a different angle on it. This was a perfect PR process. What they did, what they want is they want a standalone league for the top 6 or so, away from the Premiership, where they have the most pulling power for TV revenue, etc., 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 etc. Right? And what they did is they went, right, how are we going to do this? Well, we need to make sure that fans are on board, and we know that they're not. So they put out these stories blaming more the European teams, who are the ones leading the charge for this, and let the fans go mad. The fans went mad, and then all of a sudden they come out and went, yeah, no, this isn't a good idea. We didn't think this. We think it needs to be looked at in more detail. And then all of a sudden, the English clubs look like the saviours, and they threw the Italian sides out and the Spanish teams out to the wolves. And, you know, over there, they don't really give a shit, because most people would only care about watching the top 2 or 3 teams rather than the whole league. And that's where it's come. This is a massive PR. And if you can't see that you get played by these people in charge of football organisations, we are no longer football fans. We are customers. And it is all about our spend per head. That's why, you know, Millwall put a statement out this week talking about, you know, we hit 5,000 overseas fans this year, and they're looking to increase that and all of that, because they're the people that turn up and go to a game, buy 2 or 3 tickets, spend 150 quid in a club shop, buying all the shirts and scarves, etc., etc., etc. to wear, buying the shit burgers and the fucking drinks and overpriced watered down beer and all that lot. They're the people what spend per head is worth a fortune to the club, more so than me or you who go out, buy a season ticket, you know, don't really drink at the ground. We drink in the pubs beforehand because we know it's, 1, impossible to get a beer during half time. 2, it tastes like shit. You don't want a burger that's been sitting there since 11 o'clock, or a sausage roll that's been sitting there since 11 o'clock, or even buying a sausage roll that's going to cost you 4.5 quid. And whenever you do question it, they go, but that's what price it is at these events nowadays. But you're not an event. You're at a community activity with working class fans what go and give you and support you all the time for love, money, everything else. It's a bugbear of mine.
Do you know what, Mickey? I completely feel you, and I think that lots of fans of clubs, Championship, certainly Premier League, are feeling completely disconnected with their club. And I know a West Brom fan
there's one on here. He ain't fucking shut up all night.
Right, exactly. But another West Brom fan who actually did a podcast with Chris, a sort of family friend, who's saying the reasons he actually fell in love with West Brom Albion aren't actually there right now. And I think part of the reason why I do what I do, which is kind of covering and promoting the EFL more generally, including Leagues 1 and 2, is because some of these clubs, it's far from perfect, the EFL, of course, in terms of ownership, but there's lots of clubs that really care about the people, that are happy to say hello to you, that welcome fans, that sort of repay the loyalty of season ticket holders. There's a community feel. And I think at parts of the Premier League and even parts of the Championship, I think we're losing that a little bit. And I think there's EFL clubs in the lower leagues that have got, I think nowadays football fans have got to almost follow 2 teams. If you initially supported a Premier League team, I think if you want both your boxes ticked, where you want to watch top level football and you want to feel a sense of community, I think you've got to sort of follow 2 teams now. I think that's the only way of checking both boxes. And I know that you're a Millwall fan, you might feel like that's a horrible thing to say, but I think that's the truth for a lot of people.
There you go. Look, 200 tickets at Fulham for next season are £3,000 each. That's when you know they've taken an 18% increase in season tickets and everything else. So, it's madness. Oh, look. Oh, Mr. fucking Hyde alone.
Mickey, there was a really good question earlier about the top 3 managers of the season. I'd like to...
I did quote on that, and then we went off tangent, but we'll come back to that right now. It's another one of Glenn's. No, it wasn't Glenn, was it? Where is it? It was it Glenn?
I just seen Omar's comment.
I know. No, Sky Blue Sam. So Omar will pay for that comment. Don't panic. He's the guy I started this with. For you guys who don't know who Omar is, he's the guy I started this podcast with a couple of years ago. So he's always brave on the keyboard, never that brave on the face to face. He's got login details. He could come on now, but he won't. We'll start with you, Ben, then go Ken, and then go Gab, Matt, and then you, Chris. Who makes your 3 nominations for manager and player of the season in the Championship, and why?
Well, I'll do my managers first, but without question, and if anyone argues with me, they're just wrong, is Gareth Ainsworth for the fantastic job he's doing in getting QPR relegated this season.
Never forget what he did to Tony Craig.
Absolutely 100% manager of the season if that manages to take QPR down. No, but in all seriousness, I think has to be Rob Edwards. I know the kind of foundations were already there at Luton. I think he was extremely harshly dealt with at Watford. We've already touched upon Watford and what shambles they are. But what he's done again with them is just superb. I could have put them in my biggest overachievers of the season and the best team that I'd seen. I think they've been brilliant. They weren't very good against us the other week, but it was kind of a must not lose game for them, I feel like. But yeah, I think he's been manager of the season by quite some way. You could argue Michael Carrick with the position he took over at Borough, but again, I think their squad was kind of already there from what Wilder left behind. But I'm going to go with Gareth Ainsworth if he manages to get QPR relegated or when, and then Rob Edwards to pip him if they don't. And the players I haven't thought of, I'm going to come back with, but probably Zian Fleming when he takes us to the Premier League.
Got it, Ken.
I'll probably agree with you there with the Luton manager, to be fair. They're doing fantastic on the budget. Probably smaller than ours or very similar to ours. Although I think obviously my manager, Robbins, has done a fantastic job to get us where we are. I don't want to pick my own manager in this. If I'm not going to pick my own manager, if I had to pick somebody else, I'd go for Edwards at Luton. Yeah, without a doubt. I think for a small budget, for a small club, for a small run, very small. They don't get many fans in that. As we all know, if you've ever been in the away end at Luton, it's very compact and the ground's very, very small. We don't get many tickets, so they obviously don't make too much money on the stadium and games. So their budget's got to be very small. So, yeah, simply because of that, for the budget and what he has to work with, and the team's very solid. They do get the results. Maybe they don't play the way everybody likes the way they play, but they get results. And in this league, it's all about getting results, isn't it? And they're up there in the playoffs. So, yeah, I'd agree with you there. I'll go for the Luton manager.
Okay, Gab.
Certainly second the Luton, Rob Edwards. I'd probably go for Michael Carrick at Middlesbrough just for that transformative impact that he's made, and obviously Vincent Kompany at Burnley for obvious reasons. In terms of player of the season, I think I would give it to Victor Gyökeres. I think he's been the best player in the league, closely followed by Iliman Ndiaye and Chuba Akpom of Middlesbrough and Jai of Sheffield United. And it's funny, actually, because I don't have a Burnley player in there, but I think they've just been so good consistently across the whole team as opposed to relying on one standout individual.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, obviously, I think we would all agree that Vincent Kompany's done unbelievable things, but it's weird that none of us have picked him, right? They could go on and break the championship point record. I think that's still on. And none of us have said that he's going to be manager of the season. But, yeah, interesting one.
Go on, Matt.
I'll jump in there because for me, I don't think you can look past Vincent Kompany, to be honest, as manager of the month. You know, you look at your Mark Robbins, I've forgotten the Luton manager's name already. Rob Edwards. You look at them and they've done good jobs, but at the end of the day, the job is to win games in the Championship, and the job is to get promoted. And you look at the all-round job that Kompany's done at Burnley, and you can't look past that, I don't think. So for me, it'd be Kompany, manager of the month. Second would probably be Michael Carrick, just looking at the difference that Carrick has brought to Borough, and also the football that they do play. Again, it's just been a total revolution of their style of play. Followed by third, probably Rob Edwards for manager of the month, manager of the year. Sorry, for me. Players of the season. I think obviously Chibrapcom has to be up there. You know, top goal scorer in the league, will probably win that. Victor Gyökeres as well. I think you can't leave him out. And kind of, I'm struggling with a third one because it's stuck between two. I think, which would be between Josh Brownhill of Burnley, because he's been absolutely fantastic in that midfield for Burnley, and kind of the similar sort of role for Sheffield United in Ollie Norwood, who I think is probably one of the most criminally underrated players in the Championship. I remember him back when he used to play for Reading back in 14-15. He was criminally underrated then obviously goes to Brighton, makes his name, but I don't think you'll find a more kind of complete Championship midfielder who can just run a game on a week-to-week basis than Norwood, and doesn't get the praise I think that he probably deserves. So I know I've kind of cheated there with saying 4, because I would probably want to put Norwood in the top 3, but I don't think I could leave Brownhill out because he's captained obviously this Burnley team, been so instrumental to it. So yeah, I've kind of cheated there, but I hope that's okay.
That's fine with me. Go on in, Chris.
I mean, look, I'd probably go over a lot of the names that everybody else has gone for, because I'd probably end up plumping for my top 3 being Kompany, Carrick, and Rob Edwards, not necessarily in that order. So, but I just want to give a nod to a couple of others that haven't got mentioned. I mean, first of all, Tony Mowbray at Sunderland. I don't think a promoted side from League One has ever finished in the top half since the Championship was rebranded as the Championship. I think it flies under the radar what a job he has done to take Sunderland up from League One and have them in contention at the end of the season for a playoff place. I think because Sunderland are such a massive club, people just assume, oh, Sunderland would be up there, but it has never happened before. From what I understand, that a promoted club has actually gone on and finished in the top half of the Championship. So
can I just ask you a question on him quickly? Do you think Alex Neil finishes where they are right now?
Just on that, Chris, yeah, I'm pretty sure we did in 16-17. I think then we finished 8th the year after.
Okay. But nonetheless, it's an achievement. It's still. I think it's a real achievement to come up from League One and not be anywhere, not be anywhere near the relegation battle, but to be actually in with a very, very outside sniff of the playoffs. And no, to answer your question, I've never been convinced by Alex Neil. I'm biased on Tony Mowbray because I did work with him at West Brom, and I think he's a fantastic manager, and I think he's criminally underrated. And just while on the Sunderland thing, in terms of players, look, again, I could go through all the same names that we've gone through, but I do think the lad Diao at Sunderland is what the heck he's doing in this. Is it Diallo? Diallo, sorry. What the heck he's doing in this division is absolutely beyond me. He is just a cut above. I mean, in terms of ability on the ball, I think there's only really him and maybe Zahori that I've seen this season that probably have that technical ability to beat a player. I just think he is an unbelievable player. And the only other one that I'd just chuck a mention to, if I was going to go on a second half of the season player, I think Sammy Smodics at Blackburn has absolutely transform them. I think he's. I mean, what he's done in the cups has been unbelievable. But I've said all season, I didn't think Blackburn were all they were cracked up to be. I thought they'd drop out the playoffs. But the way Smodics has come into that front three and played has made me think again on Blackburn, because I just think he's been an absolute revelation for them.
Just before we leave the manager piece, Mickey, and I know you're still on mute, so I can jump in now. I'm just going to say, because no one said it, Gary Rowett as an outside nomination, because I know we're Millwall fans. He hasn't even had the best rep with us at times, and he struggled to win us over. But for us to finish again, whether we do finish in the top six or not, to finish as close as we will do to the playoffs on the budget we have, the the managerial effort he's done over the last 3 years, and it's probably another conversation. I don't think he'll be with us for much longer, but a massive shout out for Gary Rowett. He might not win manager of the season or be everyone's favourite manager, but he's done a great job with us.
Absolutely. If I can, I've got a head sheet off now, but thanks.
Go on, you want to rush off, don't you? So yeah. No, thanks for coming on, Gabe.
Thanks for having me, and all the best of Lions for the rest of the season, mate.
Cheers.
Yeah, no worries. We'll get you on again. We'll get you on again, Gab. Don't worry. All right, maybe we won't. You go off that quickly. Right, bear with me, gents. Let's just have a look through these comments and just hit some of these. Again, one of our guys has said, the job company's done on transferring their style of play is underappreciated. Great squad to choose from, the resources. Did not lose key players last season either. Let's just have a look and see. Victoria. Managers Rowett, Edwards and Robbins. 3 teams punching above their weight.
Like Victoria.
Really incredible. Really incredible jobs. Norwood's record for being a key player in teams to win promotion from Championship is impressive. Mulberry is piggybacking off the good work Alex Neil did at Sunderland.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that at all, because you look at the way he's changed their style of play. I'm sorry, I'm not having that. I think if you watch Sunderland last season and how Alex Neil got them promoted, the way Tony Mowbray plays is completely different. So no, I'm not having that.
It's with their fullbacks. He's pressing their fullbacks really high. It's one thing I noticed when we went up to the Stadium of Light to watch him, because I can't remember. I think it was number 42 or something on the left. He was all over the place. Like, he was on the left, he was on the right. It's a very dynamic style of play, and it's not an Alex Neil style, that's for sure. No. So yeah, I have to back you up on that one there. Yeah.
Dave Clark's left a great message in the chat. Norwich are playing like Reading tonight.
No, they're not, because Norwich have actually scored a goal at Middlesbrough. So, yeah.
Right. There was some... there we go. This is a question what's in my book, and we'll come to this one, and then we'll come to the other one. Why are the referees this season so inconsistent?
Because they're the Premier League cast-offs. I mean, we've got the guy. I think he's doing commentary QPR this weekend.
He is.
Screwed up the PAR.
Unfortunately, yeah.
It's exactly that, and I think there's no retribution for refs. We've talked about this for season upon season. Refs can have a bad game, and it will just be ticked off for the next game, or they'll just be dropped down a division. Like, God only hope. I dread to think what League One refs are like. I'm preparing myself already for that abomination next year. To be honest,
they're not very good. I'll show you.
Yeah, no, like because the lower down you get, like say you just get the cast offs. There's no kind of try or process to follow to make sure lessons are tried to be learned, or you try and understand where you went wrong, or that maybe there is and we don't see it, but
or consistent standard that has to be met.
Yeah, exactly that.
Do you think VAR? Do you think VAR would be good in the Championship?
No, because it still takes human beings to use it, and the human beings don't seem to know the laws of the game.
Do we need it? Because all Championship teams at the moment have Hawkeye. We've all got Hawkeye in our stadium at a cost of stupid amounts for the clubs of close to about 80 grand, I think it was. But we've all got Hawkeye. That then tells us if a goal is a goal. Do we need VAR? Really? Because to me, it's, for instance, Millwall versus West Brom playoff final in the pre-legs or in the playoff semis. We're playing you, and we get a dodgy penalty decision, and we score. We go on to win. They're the memories what live with you forever. Fucking hell, that was never a foul, but at least
you flip that the other way. Got it. You flip it the other way.
But that's always the reputation. What you always have is following a football team. You'll have one decision go your way or one don't, and that's what these cup finals, everything else, all come down to memories that last forever. You suddenly bring in VAR, it's gone.
Yeah. I suppose.
I'll just argue that football. We're trying to make football a very emotionless environment, and I think.
I disagree.
5-1 to Middlesbrough, by the way. Just for a live update to keep them rolling in. Yeah, I think we're trying to make it a very emotionless environment, and we need to keep some sort of. Whilst there needs to be an element of getting every decision correct, there needs to be a little bit of, as Chris said, there's always going to be human error, whether it's on the pitch with replays or without it. I think unless it's a massively glaring 10-yard offside or handball goal like Thierry Henry against Ireland or something like that, I think it should just be left. I think these tight calls should just be left, right?
My problem with it, sorry, just to quickly say, is that it's fine with offsides. At least that's cut and dried. But when we're re-refereeing, for example,
everything else is subjective, right?
Yeah, it's a matter of opinion. What I think is a foul is not the same as what Matt or Ben or Mickey or Ken might think is a foul. I don't understand why we're using VAR for stuff which it cannot be proven one way or another. It's entirely subjective.
But I think one thing with VAR everyone complains about still is the offsides, and yet the offsides are still quite clear, and people are still like, oh no, you can't be calling that offside. It's well, the line is there. I know people say about where the lines get drawn and that, and it's hard to actually pick where the ball's kicked and that. But I think for me, it's just you want the result to be the fairest result possible. And if you've got a bad referee on the day, I mean, I remember when we played Sheffield Wednesday a couple of seasons back, when we had pretty much 4 Stonewall penalties that weren't given, and well, I'd probably say 3 Stonewall penalties, but 4 penalties could have definitely been given that day because one was probably 50-50, and none of them were given, and you've got to be getting to the fairest result. And we didn't win the game that day either, I don't think, from memory. I think we drew it 1-1. For me, it's just got to be the way that you get the fairest result, and you've got to get the decisions mostly right, and championship refs have proven that they can't do that on a weekly basis, seemingly, be it offside, penalties, whatever.
Right, here we go. We're going to shut down now as such. This is going to be the final question. This was supposed to be a 40-minute show, what's turned into nearly an hour and a half. Which I don't have an issue with. It's been a good crack and it's flowed well, and we've discussed loads of bits, and we definitely have to do these again. Right, Ben wants a question, which I want a question. Who are your top 2 and who are your playoff contenders? We'll start with you first, Chris, and then go to you, Matt, you, Ken, and then...
You got relegation there as well, Mickey, because that's still quite tight.
We can do that, yeah. Who's top lot?
Well,
Burnley, relegation.
Yeah, Burnley are gone, so there's no point. There's no point.
Who's going to finish second?
I think Sheffield United will just about do it, not least because they've still got to play us at home, so that's 3 points. But I think if I was going to expect anybody to get in there, I would actually fancy Luton over Borough. I think they're more consistent in terms of 4 to make the playoffs. Luton, Borough without a shadow of a doubt, Millwall, and then the last space. I've said all season that Blackburn will blow it, and so I'm going to stand by that, and I'm going to say Preston are going to nick in there, and then my 3 to go down. Look, Wigan and Blackpool are gone. I don't think you only got to look at the league table to see that, and QPR. Because they're falling like a flipping stone, and there's always one every year that just cannot stop falling and falling and falling.
Okay, Matt?
I think the top 2 is pretty much wrapped up. I don't think it needs much discussion on that one. Burnley and Sheffield will be promoted for me. And I'll be honest, I think I got the same top 3 as playoff 4 as you, Chris, there, with Borough, Luton, Millwall and Preston, because Preston are hitting form right at the right time. You look at, I think they're 4 wins in 5. And I mean, to be fair, when I look at how they played against us last week, I mean, they were absolutely fantastic. If they can get that home form a bit better, hopefully they can kick on and, get that. I don't think Norwich will get in there. I think they'll just miss out. Blackburn as well. Again, getting out of form at the wrong time in the season, which again, we've seen it time and time again with teams that hit form at the end of the season, teams that drop out. Bottom 3, Wigan and Blackpool, I think are done. And I know we've talked about how QPR have dropped like a stone, but I mean, Reading can't buy a win at the moment. And to be honest, even though we've sacked with Paul Ince, we were 100% to go down. There was no chance we were getting out that relegation zone with Paul Ince. Even with Hunt for the end to the end of the season, it's an unknown. It's still probably, I've been saying about we've got about 15% chance of survival. Probably a bit too low, because you'd probably think 1 in 4, 25%, 1 in 4 times we might be able to get out of there. But you just look at the teams we've still got to play. Burnley this weekend, Luton after that, Coventry away. They're pretty much 3 games which, you can't really see us getting points out. Even though we're strong at home, Luton, Burnley, you're not going to get points against, I don't think. Coventry away, we don't win away. So again, you can't really not won away since November. So, it's probably not going to be a result there either. 2 games at the end of the season, Wigan and Huddersfield on the last day, might pick up points, but we might be cut adrift by then. So yeah, I'm gonna put my own team in there. Unfortunately, that's Reading. So is the third team.
Wow. Those of you watching or listening or getting involved in the comments, put who you think are going to be the top 6 and who you think are going to be the bottom 3. Get those in the comments. That'd be good to see. Ken, who are your top 6? Obviously, take Burnley out, but who are your top 5 and who are your bottom 3?
Okay, I'll take Burnley out, obviously.
And you can include yourself if you want.
Yeah, I certainly will be. From what I think, anyway. Sheffield United, as it is, I think will come second, obviously. Middlesbrough third. I think, as it is now, Luton. I think your South will be 5th. Millwall, as they are now. And we will sneak into 6th place, I think. Only because I think we've got a reasonable run in with games we've got to play. We've got QPR away on Saturday. I said we've got Reading at home, Birmingham at home. And the only difficult one, really, is Middlesbrough away, the last game of the season. But we're hoping by that time, maybe it'll be settled. That's the only hope I've got, obviously, with that one. But that's the most difficult game out of the final games we've got, I think, on paper. But as you know, and I've said it, anybody on a day, anybody can beat anybody, and so unpredictable, isn't it? So you've got to be on it.
Absolutely. So who are your bottom 3?
Bottom 3, I'm going to get, obviously, Wigan, Blackpool. I don't know. I just got a funny feeling QPR will get relegated. Yeah, I agree with, I think Reading will get out of it. And I think QPR will slip into that bottom 3rd place. Because I think they're just lacking confidence at the moment.
You've both got so much more faith than I do. I need to get your optimism, honestly.
It's not faith in Reading, mate. It's a lack of faith in QPR.
That's fair enough. It's fair enough.
Go on in, Ben.
Yeah, I think if anyone's pipping Sheffield United, I think it'll be Luton. Obviously, they've got a game in hand on Borough now, so I think it'll be... I'm going to stick my neck out just to something different and say Luton will catch Sheffield United, because Sheffield United got the FA Cup semi-final coming up soon. Could play a bit of a part. So Sheffield United, Borough, ourselves, just listening to what you were saying, Ken, with your injuries, I was going to put you guys in there. The thing with Preston as well, Chris, obviously they're on a great run, but they've played no one in the top half of the table pretty much. They had a really quite an easy run. I've stuck my neck out on our pod this week and said we're going to spank them this weekend. It's going to be 3-0. So that's going to put the end to their playoff chances. So I've backed you guys, Chris, for the top 6. So I'm hoping there's going to be some late run from you guys. So I'm going to say that. So yeah, I think
you'll change your mind after we get beat at Stoke on Saturday.
No, I've got faith, Chris. So I think West Brom for a late run into the top 6. And Matt, I'm going to say you're going to have a new manager bounce. And as I've said, I just looking at QPR's fixtures, they've obviously got Coventry Saturday. They've got Norwich, Burnley. I mean, if they lose them 3, I'd say they're pretty much, they've got them play Stoke, Bristol City. They've got a really hard 5 games.
Their fixture list is as hard. It is as hard as ours. Oh, well, you might even say that ours is probably easier because we've got the last 2 games against Wigan and Huddersfield. But
their only saving grace might be they've got Stoke and Bristol City, nothing to play for. I know Burnley might be chasing the points total by them. But yeah, they've got really hard fixtures. As I say, I'm going to go with a new manager bounce for you guys, Matt. And I'm going to say QPR are going to get relegated. And then Millwall obviously going to win the playoffs.
Hope you're right. And can I just add, if Gareth Ainsworth can do what you said, Ben, to Millwall and take them down, I'm putting him as manager of the season as well. If somehow that can pull us out.
Hopefully, don't take us down. You mean take QPR down?
Oh, sorry. Yes. Take QPR down, not you guys. Sorry.
Okay, good, cool. There's a few not putting us in the playoff position. I think obviously Burnley's got it. I don't think Sheffield United will get second. I think it'll be between Middlesbrough or Luton. And I don't know, this fairy tale ending for Luton from the last season or two, I think's just got, that second place is written all over it for them. I just think they've got that desire, that hunger for it, and potentially go in. And I would probably then, it'll obviously be Middlesbrough, Sheffield Wednesday. I can't see either one of Sheffield United, even not Wednesday. I can't see either of those slipping out. I think Blackburn will drop, Preston will be in, or it will be Coventry, I think. And I think my heart says we will be in there. But like I said a while back, I can see us.
Don't make me start, Mickey. Don't make me start. We're not falling out.
I think
we're not falling out of the top six. I mean, not us falling out.
We could end up being seventh. Relegation, I think Reading will get out, and I think it will be Wigan, Blackpool, and QPR. I would love it to be QPR, Cardiff as well, but I think it will probably be Wigan, obviously, because they are so far adrift. Blackpool, again, because they're so far adrift, and I think it will probably be QPR. So, yeah, I think the easiest way to finish this, we've got a couple of minutes, is we'll start with you, Ken. If you want to tell the audience a bit about your channel, how they can find you, and we'll do you two guys, and then we'll do our thanks, and then we'll all fuck off. So, Ken, tell us who you are if people want to look at you a bit more.
Yeah, you can get on all the social media channels on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, Sky Blue Fans TV. Just type that in. We do 2 shows a week, on a Thursday and on a Sunday, obviously previewing the games and reviewing the games as they come. And then we sometimes have special episodes during the week as and when required. We also do a show every game we play. We do a pre-match show, speaking to the fans in and around the stadium an hour before kickoff. At every stadium we go to, we have a pre-match show for half an hour, basically from 2:00 till 2:30, 2:45, just interviewing the fans as and when they come into the stadium and just before kickoff. So yeah, Sky Blue Fans TV, basically available on all social media networks. Just type in Sky Blue Fans TV.
Chris, tell us about your show, what you do, and where they can find you. Because some of them might have heard you lots tonight and might think, I like his voice, I want to listen to him some more.
Even my own parents don't say that, so I can't imagine that's true. Albion Analysis is the podcast. We're pretty much wherever you get your podcasts, so Spotify, Apple Pods, all the usual places. But yeah, just a weekly podcast, or depending on how often Albion play, just looking back over the game, looking at a bit of the data, but with the usual passion that you hopefully get from a fan pod as well. And me and my co-presenter, I basically do all the talking, and then he gets a word in edgeways every now and then because he's the expert with the numbers. So and drop us a follow on Twitter if you want at Albion Analysis as well. So drop us a follow.
Excellent. We'll go to you, Matt. At the moment, you're a Championship podcast. You think next season you're going to be a League One podcast. We all have faith and think you're still going to be a Championship podcast. So you've been on our show a couple of times, or you were on our show with the Inside Man. So come on and tell us where they can find you and what your show is all about.
Like everyone else, Championship podcast show at the moment. So you can find us on all of your podcast playing sites, so Spotify, Apple Pods, etc. We do pre-match podcast, post-match podcast. We also have done interviews with ex-players. Did a podcast earlier in the season with Mark Bowen as well, our sporting director. So it's just a bit of a Reading FC fan site, podcast site. Find us on Twitter, Elm Park Royals, or at EPR. To obviously just keep up to date with all Reading FC comings and goings. And one of the guys as well, Alex, does a stats page as well at Biscuit Analytic. So yeah, if you're one for the statistics, he runs that site as well.
Excellent. Benjamin, what are you all about?
What am I all about? Well, I'm going to give you a shout out here, Mickey, because I got introduced to the show by yourself when we did the Spaces early in the season. So first season, me being on the podcast. But yeah, if you want me to do a shout out on our podcast, at that Millwall podcast, we're on all the socials. We probably do 2 or 3 shows a week, Mickey, about various subjects, don't we? And it's always a good one. We do most previews on the games each week. So yeah, if you like what either of us have said, not many people like Millwall, so I hope you probably won't want to follow us. But if you do, then give us a follow. We always need the support.
Yeah, that's it. Listen, we are that Millwall podcast. Hopefully you've enjoyed this. This is a new a new outing as such, and I think it's something that's worked well. And I think I'm up for doing a few more of these. These are good, different people every week, and keeping some of us on. And you know, hopefully we can get different bods to chair it and stuff, and it'll be a good way of just getting a general feel across really the championship as such. I think Sky Blue Sam, honestly, this season could go down to the last kick of the day with 4 or 5 teams in the hunt for playoffs, still potential. Totally agree with you there. Just a final note from me before we do go. I'd like to thank every single one of you who voted for us in the podcast awards. We didn't make the final 3, but we weren't last. And we beat a couple of others. I know where we come, but I don't know if it's public knowledge yet. But we come middle of the table, which ain't bad for a small little podcast like ourselves, who's only been going 2 years. And we are a niche market, really. We are Millwall fans only, apart from this show where it's ventured out. But we are a Millwall only show. So yeah, those of you who did vote for us, thank you very much. Again, if you're following us on here, and it don't matter if you want to watch us again, but just make sure you subscribe while you're here and give this video a like, because that helps us more than you could possibly understand with the algorithms and making more people watch us and all that lot. It means nothing to you. Just a click and a thumbs up means the world to us, and we think you love us if you do that. But that's it. We are that Millwall podcast. This was that Championship round table, and that's it. What the fuck is that? I'm lost there, mate. Millwall done a row. Mickey done a row. I've got
doing well with a low budget, I reckon, Mickey.
Yeah, no, yeah. No, we did, yeah. And also, you've seen the people I've got to work with. So, yeah. Anyway, thanks very much for joining us. Take the time out on a Friday evening. Thank you very much for the guys who took place. Ken from Sky Blue Fans TV, give him a follow. Chris Hall from Albion Analysis, give him a like. And also Matt from PEPR. You can find them all on social media. And our very own Ben Greeny, who's got a private account, and he'll only follow you back if he likes you. So that's it. We're done. We'll speak to you over the weekend. We got Preston tomorrow, which is a must-win game. And
good luck.
And we'll see you next week. Thank you very much, Ken. You're the only one who said that. You see, these two other don't care.
No,
they don't want us to have it.
Like turkeys voting for Christmas, me wishing you good luck.
You got Jed. Anyway, speak to you later on. Bye.
Bye.